welcome to episode 67 of From the Shed End podcast with myself, T-Dot and Theo. As always, how you doing?
Not bad, yeah. It's been a bit of an eventful week, like you know all about it. But no, it's looking forward to the weekend. Got some plans. It's 28 degrees actually in London, so maybe go out for a little walk in the sunshine later on. So can't complain too much.
28 degrees now.
Right I think now. So. Yeah, it's going to be 28 later.
Send it up to M6 because it's probably, to be fair, it's about 20 up here, but it's raining. So
yeah.
Well,
if you want to come down for the Chelsea-Leicester game on Saturday.
Listen, the virtual, the ticket system's a mess at Chelsea. They need to sort that.
Yeah, we should have a separate episode just bashing the virtual waiting room system.
Yeah, definitely. But yeah, no, it's good to hear that you've got sort of a window of opportunity to go and just enjoy a bit of time, free time, and get away from losing 3-0 to teams and stressing over Chelsea. But for those listening on Spotify, Apple, please go and subscribe to the YouTube channel. There's a Linktree link in the description, so make sure you click on there. It's got all our social accounts and everything else that's related to the channel, so we appreciate that. But I've mentioned it. Let's start no other place than 3-0 against Leeds, Ellen Road. Tough ground to go to. A lot of history between the two clubs, which I kind of forgot about until I'd done a bit of history digging before the game. But just trying to assess in some sort of nutshell the game itself, line up, just assess, give me your overall assessment of the game and how it went.
I think every single person that watched it would know that we were very, very poor. We were very, very poor. And if anything, Leeds could have scored more than 3 on the day. And it was a well-deserved win for them and a well-deserved defeat for us. You just got to hold up your hand and say we got it completely wrong on the day. I think there's a lot of different factors that contributed to the defeat for us. I think some of the players' work rate and mentality was very, very poor on the day, particularly those offensive players that, we've criticised Lukaku so much last season for not doing enough to get the ball, to be in the right position. Then the same can be said about Havertz, Mount, and those players, because I think their work rate was really poor, their mentality was really poor. They should be creating chances for themselves rather than expecting the ball to fall at their feet all the time. I think we can criticise maybe Tuchel for the lineup he played. I think it was a predicted lineup, but clearly things didn't work out. Conor Gallagher in a double pivot in midfield didn't work. I think it was the first time we tested out him making his start. He had a very difficult, I don't want to say poor because he was being played out of position, but it was a very difficult debut for him. And I think if we were to play him again, it needs to be in a 3-man midfield, I think, with a 4 at the back. Other players, again, I think Koulibaly, we praised him in the previous episode, but I think he gave away a silly foul and he got a yellow card quite early on. And even that second yellow was just pointless. You're 3-0 down, don't do that. You're now going to miss the game against Leicester. It's silly. And substitutions as well. Maybe they came a bit too late. I would have liked to see a couple of subs at half time. That falls on Tuchel. Tuchel again, after the game, kind of blaming other factors like the coaching staff having to travel on a train than a plane. He's starting to sound a bit like Klopp, at this rate.
Yeah.
It's just a really frustrating day. Me as a Chelsea fan, I accepted that defeat, but clearly some of the players and the manager didn't accept it. And then I've just seen that Pulisic has posted a picture on Instagram with the 2 Leeds American players with the American flag. Clearly, he's already forgotten about the defeat. So it's disappointing. I think work rate, mentality, managers' tactics, managers' formation. I think a combination of all of those kind of led to the defeat.
I agree 100%. I think there's so many things that when you look back at a game where, you expect a difficult game against Leeds. They're a high pressing team. They press, which they did, credit to them. They done what they needed to do. But there's so many factors that from the back end of last season, pre-season, that we kind of thought, okay, we'll get away with maybe, bringing in Koulibaly or bringing in aheemSterling. That might help with those issues, but they seem to be getting worse. There's no real indication that all these issues that we had kind of at the back end, Mendy, goalkeeper playing out from the back. Why are we including him in the build-up of play? If he's not confident with his feet, then just let's not pass the ball back to Mendy, because this is now the 3rd, maybe 4th time that he's done something where you just question what part of his brain is he using to not just clear the ball out, just kick it out for a corner. I'm sure we've said this before. Kick it out for a corner, kick it out for a throw-in. Just kick it in the defender's face if you have. Just kick the ball somewhere so it's not going, in the goal. I just don't understand that. So there's so many things, and I think you're spot on with Tuchel. I think, especially with the fan base, and you go online and you see people say, Tuchel out or Tuchel in, and we're not allowed to criticize Tuchel. We are allowed to criticize Tuchel. We're allowed to criticize the players, because at the end of the day, just because we're criticizing it, we praise them just as much. Criticism comes with that as well. And I think there has been certain things that Tuchel's done, and I think back, maybe could we have used Azpilicueta as a right centre back, and maybe use Reece James as the right wing back, or do we go back to a back four? I've been screaming Mason Mount should be in that sort of midfield for me, or maybe Conor Gallagher. I mean, Conor Gallagher in a double pivot with Jorginho. That was setting him up to fail. I mean, that is a massive. If that doesn't scream out that we need a CDM, Ethan Ampadu potentially should have been playing as alongside Jorginho in that game, because yes, he's not the answer to the solution or the problem. Sorry, but he's definitely someone that on loan last season was able to play in that. We know that he can play CDM. He can play in that midfield as a double pivot. We know he can do it. So why is he on the bench? Why is he not included? I feel it was harsh on Conor Gallagher, because I think he's not. I mean, he played okay. I don't want to single him out. He played okay, but in the first half, you could see he was a bit of a loss in terms of what the expectations of him were. And I think defensively he was exposed a lot. Which then exposed the three centre-backs, which then put a lot of pressure on them as well. And it kind of restricted, Reece James and Cucurella going forward in that game, I thought. But, look, talk to me about the squad that we've got at the moment. I mean, I still feel there's so many gaps. We talk about a striker. We've spoken about the fact we do need a CDM or a defensive midfielder. They still talk about Wesley Fofana. It just seems, and now we're talking about Anthony Gordon. It just seems very sporadic in terms of whether it's Thomas Tuchel or Todd Boehly, or a combination of the two. But it just seems very sporadic in terms of who we're trying to go for. And for me personally, now I think a CDM should be top. I mean, Wesley Fofana is great, but a CDM is what I think we need.
But rather than just jump into the transfer window and splash out 60 million on these type of players, why don't we just look at what we've currently got? You mentioned Ampadu, brilliant player, very versatile, can play in a back three, can play as one of the two centre-backs, can play as a CDM. Billy Gilmore's another player who's still in our squad. He hasn't been sent out on loan yet. He wasn't at the open training session at Stamford Bridge yesterday either, which indicates that he probably doesn't have a future this season at Chelsea. And then I think our main priority should be solving our goal problem. We're playing Havertz, Mount, and Sterling. They haven't scored a single goal between the three of them so far this season. They didn't look like they were going to score at any stage. I mean, sure, Sterling scored a brilliant goal, which is offside. But I think I'm all for getting Aubameyang now. I'm all for getting Aubameyang. Sure, he's 33. Sure, he comes with that whole package of him coming to the training sessions in his gold Lamborghini or whatever it is, and his big ego. But I feel like he's got a relationship with Tuchel from his Dortmund days. He does have goals in him. He's done it in the Premier League before he signed the contract, and the next 6 months all went downhill for him at Arsenal. But before that period, that's the Aubameyang I want to look at. He was a prolific goal scorer. Even last season, in his 6 months at Barcelona, he was scoring in the Europa League, and I think he scored even in the Clasico, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
He's a good player. And then this other player we're linked with, Anthony Gordon, 60 million after one decent season. It's crazy money. It's crazy money. And then there's talks of sending Hudson-Odoi out on loan to Bayer Leverkusen. I love the English players going on loan to the Bundesliga. You look at how the Bundesliga have nurtured English talents like Bellingham, Sancho. Fantastic league to learn and to develop as a player. But his stats on the Tuchel aren't shabby. Every time he started, we've never lost a game. I think it's 24 wins, 6 draws. And he hasn't really been given a chance. I don't think he's even played a single game for us since the injury against Luton in March. So I think that's a player we should definitely look at before even thinking of splashing 60 million on Anthony Gordon. CDM positions, same story as last season. As soon as Kante or Kovacic gets injured, we look really weak and fragile in that department. Utilize Ampadu, utilize Gilmore. I want to see these players get a run of games. But I still feel like the focus before the end of the window, possibly a centre-back and a goal scorer in attack.
Yeah, and The only thing that worries me about the Patrick Aubameyang, I'm hearing 35 million. It's not my money, so I don't really care. It's not I'm not spending 35 million, but I just think, I'm looking at Newcastle, who are going for Isak, I think, from Real Sociedad, and okay, it's 58 million. I get it, but just in terms of his goal record for club and country, it just throws my head off that we're not looking at that sort of player. No disrespect to Anthony Gordon, I'm sure he's going to be a brilliant player. He's got the qualities to do that, but £60 million for a player that isn't really proven at Everton, a team where he looks okay because of who he's around. You look at, again, no disrespect to him, but Iwobi or Tom Davies, all these players that Dele Alli. He looks good amongst those players, but we've got Callum Hudson-Odoi, who, for me personally, and I can only imagine this is maybe Callum Hudson-Odoi wanting to leave as opposed to Thomas Tuchel wanting Callum Hudson-Odoi to leave. He was flirting around with, I think it was Bayern Munich, I think, 2 or 3 seasons ago. So you get that he wants his, frustration of not getting regular football. I get that, but these are times when surely if you're doing it on a training pitch and the manager's there day in, day out with you, this is the time to break into the squad, because it's a free-for-all. There's no real clear lineup for Chelsea at the moment. You could arguably say maybe your centre-backs, if you're going to play 3 at the back, you can kind of tell who they're going to be. Maybe, even say left wing-back, you don't know. Is it going to be Ben Chilwell or is it going to be Cucurella? You don't know. It worries me that with 3 seasons in with someone like Kai Havertz, Mason Mount, who, yes, back-to-back player of the seasons is brilliant, but there's no real improvement in the player. And again, I don't want to just try and criticize and single out just those 2. You could say that about probably amongst most of the squad, but you see someone like Kai Havertz and you think, okay, you've been here for 3 seasons. We gave you the benefit of the doubt coming into a new league. COVID happened as well. I think he had COVID, all of these things, but there's no real progression in some of these players, and you just wonder, when is that going to come? When will we see the Kai Havertz that we paid close to £70 million for, or Mason Mount, when he takes that next level up and almost carries the midfield on his back a little bit? And when is Jorginho actually going to be the Jorginho that we need him to be consistently? Kante, is he going to be able to do a full season without picking up injuries? Kovacic as well. There's so many massive question marks over the club. And, I think you look at the other teams, you look at Spurs, you look at Arsenal, you look at even, say, Liverpool, massive question mark over them at the moment in terms of squad depth. But Man City, even potentially Manchester United, they're looking good. They're looking good. What worries me now, I think, is where do we go in terms of this season? Because, realistically, we should be getting top 4 with the squad we've got. We've won the Champions League with this squad. No different, really, when you think about the players that we've got now. We've potentially lost some, but we've recruited some as well. But you look at even Newcastle, they're spending good, they're making some really good signings. So what would you say, and it's early in the season, but based off the first 3 games, realistically, are we talking Europa League? Are we talking outside of Europe? It just seems we're almost dropping down the pecking order when it comes to the top 6.
Yeah, I think we said it a few episodes back that we'll give our predictions come the end of the transfer window, because I still think there's still business to be done. But based on what I've seen so far, and like you said, the warning signs were there end of last season, pre-season. I'm not optimistic. I'm really not optimistic from what I've seen so far. The Spurs performance was promising, but we still dropped points. The Leeds result, that's a fixture any other season we should be winning. We won it 3-0 last season in a period that we weren't actually performing that well. It's quite worrying. I wouldn't say worrying, but it's times as Chelsea fans, we've got a lot of questions to ask about the mentality of the players, about the manager's formation, about the tactics, about some of the players that are currently still in the team that aren't featuring, about some of the players that have been sent out on loan or are going to be sent out on loan. It's quite confusing, but I think come the end of August, there may be a bit more clarity. We find out on Thursday as well who our Champions League opposition might be in the groups. But, with pot 2, we could be drawing against a Madrid or a PSG, and then there's curtains for us to, early on in a way, based on what we've seen so far. So, there's a lot of questions still to be asked, but let's just stay optimistic, try to stay optimistic and say we'll still battle for top 4.
I mentioned earlier around criticising Thomas Tuchel, which I think is rightfully so. You said about almost comparing him to Klopp in terms of some of the excuses. I think the one that he used about the coaching staff, Tuchel having to get, I think the coach and the players getting the plane. I don't understand why that was. I didn't really read into it, but is this not a time for Tuchel to think, right, we haven't got the centre backs to play free at the back. We haven't got, we've got injuries. So is this not a time for a change of formation, change of tactics, maybe play 3 in midfield?
I mean, I'm never going to say that I don't back Tuchel. I always back him. He's manager that won us the Champions League, and his formation and his tactics are what won us the Champions League. But I think it is time to be a bit more creative rather than just always stick to the same formation. You mentioned it last time before the Spurs match that the 4 at the back works so well against Spurs, and we can play maybe a Ziyech and have that extra man in the midfield. I think it's time to maybe almost confuse teams and not go the traditional back 3, because it seems that tactics almost exposed now. Teams know how to play against it. You mentioned the Newcastle being such a good team now. Brighton as well. They look like the full package now. They sold Fulham as well. Yeah, they've taken some points off Liverpool and Brentford. So it's going to be. There's not one match now in the Premier League that's a guaranteed win. Not a single one. Last season you had Norwich. Maybe that was a guaranteed 3 points almost. Now you look at every single team, even a Southampton, even a Forest. Those are teams that if we play like we did against Leeds, we will struggle. We will really struggle.
Yeah, and I think, I do question Tuchel in terms of, like you said, about subs and not changing, adapting. I think we came out. I think the fact we went to a back 4 during the Leeds game. I think it was at half time. I think he switched it to a back 4, maybe just after half time, and I think that could have been done in the first half. I think, those kind of things need to be done a lot earlier, because you're right. I think teams this season, Leeds especially, I mean, they done, like I said, done really well. But the teams you mentioned, this is why I think Liverpool lost against Manchester United, because some teams just play the same formation, same tactics. And, you only have to study half a dozen of their, previous matches to understand how they play. The fact that we leave a lot of space to run into behind because of Reece James or, Chilwell, Cucurella, whoever it is. And I think teams have cottoned onto that. Apply the pressure. Don't give us any space, any time on the ball. And I said it earlier, I think it was criminal to leave just the 2 of Jorginho and Gallagher. Neither are to blame, but those kind of games, you need that extra body in midfield. You need the extra body, because that's where the battles are in a game against Leeds. The battles are in midfield, and we just looked awful. And again, I'm not saying that I want Tuchel out at all. It's not that. I just think there's got to be a point where the penny drops and you say, right, we haven't got this. We haven't got Wesley Fofana over the line, so let me use Koulibaly and I don't know, Thiago Silva at the back, and have a back 4. I just think there's times when I think Tuchel has to understand that things have to change during the game or before the game or whatever it is. And I mean, hopefully his new ownership is patient, because I think we've seen it with Rome, and it doesn't take long for the fans to start speaking up, and then things happen, and then a couple of bad results, and then the manager's out the door. And I don't think that should be the case for Tuchel, but I just think all these signings that we're trying to bring in, it'd be a shame to then get rid of Tuchel, Christmas, early next year. And we've got all these players that we've just brought in for a new manager to either not want or have to regroup again. It just doesn't make any sense. So I wanted to talk about, we sort of touched on Anthony Gordon, but I want to talk about Wesley Fofana, because I feel like that is a key signing for us now. We've seen Koulibaly good and bad. So it does kind of see that we need another centre-back at the team. What's your thoughts on that? How do you think that's going to pan out? Because I think it looks like it's going to be done. I just think Leicester are holding out for this 85, 90 million price tag.
It's going to cost us a lot of money if we are going to bring him in. But I think maybe what could possibly drive the price down is he clearly doesn't want to be at Leicester anymore. You saw his body language against, I think, post-Arsenal. He wasn't in the squad against, trying to think of who they played. Was it Southampton? I can't remember.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, and he was in the stands and didn't even applaud or clap their goal. So his body language has been quite poor. There's even rumours that Brendan Rodgers might be the next manager to be sacked, and maybe that might lead to him having an easy way out, or maybe the new manager may force him to stay. It could work either ways. But Leicester know that we're desperate as well, probably. They know that we've put in 3 bids and all 3 bids have been rejected so far. And I think they'll probably wait for us to bid the 85 million that they're looking for. I know in Chelsea we probably will. We don't have Marina anymore that maybe bargain or negotiate a better price. Hudson-Odoi was a possible player we could have sent out on loan, maybe as a bargaining chip, but it looks like he's off to the Bundesliga now. So I think it's going to have to be that 85 million that Leicester are demanding, which is a lot of money. But you see it with football now. If a player performs, then often price tags are quickly forgotten about.
Yeah, I think in terms of I agree. I think in terms of Fofana, I think he's 21, so you'd expect at least for us to get the best years out of him. I know we didn't report to training, which is why I think he's training with the under 23s at the moment. And again, links back to what you said around, not celebrating the goals. It's obviously a massive disconnect between, club, manager, player. And, you can see that now. And I think, I like him as a defender. I think he broke his leg, didn't he? Was it last season or
I think he missed the whole season with an injury.
He missed the whole season, didn't he?
Maybe the season before last.
Ago. Yeah. So he's come back. He's still got a lot to prove. Like I said, he's really young, and price tags, like you say, are price tags. We don't. It's not our money. We don't. As long as he performs, and I think that's the difference for me. Wesley Fofana wants to come to the club, whereas I feel like Anthony Gordon, he's come out. He said he wants to play Champions League football and attempts to get into the World Cup squad. So for me, does he actually want to play for the badge, or does he just want to have his own self gain of getting into the World Cup squad and saying he can play in Champions League? It feels really different in terms of those two transfers. But I wanted to ask, because I still personally think Ronaldo is going to end up at Chelsea this season. I think that over Aubameyang, and I just think, and I'll tell you why. I think there's no real reason for him to stay at the club now at United. I think his body language tells you he doesn't want to be there. The manager left him on the bench and they actually play better without him. And he wants Champions League football. And I think we're the only team realistically, bar probably obviously like a PSG, which I can't see him going there, but crazy if he does, that will go for him. He's just come back he's just moved his family from abroad back to England. He's potentially going to want to stay in England at least for another, year or so. I think we're going to go in deadline day. I think we're going to go in for him. And I wouldn't be against it. I did say, a couple of weeks ago, probably before the season started, I'd be against him coming for whatever reasons I said. But for someone who knows where the back of the net is and doesn't give up, keeps himself in good shape, comes with the same baggage almost as Aubameyang, but gives you that better service as well, which makes up for it. I think Ronaldo, he comes. I think it's going to be Ronaldo, Fofana, and potentially De Jong. But I think we're going to splash the cash. We have to, because can you imagine next season with no Champions League football? It's just not even worth even thinking about.
I definitely think you've kept that one quiet on WhatsApp, not sharing that opinion. But I was waiting for the podcast. for the same reasons why I take Aubameyang, I take Ronaldo as well. Goal scorer, he knows where the back of the net is, like you said. His commercial value is massive. The amount of shirts we'd sell, Boehly would know that as well. I think Boehly will probably have a word with Tuchel saying, I want him, whether Tuchel wants him or not. But maybe Tuchel's opinions now changed after the first 3 games of the season. Maybe he realizes, shoot, we actually do need a goal scorer. We do need a player who can, bounce off the other players to score goals and so on. But there's still business to be done with United. I think whether that's De Jong, I think both clubs are clearly interested in De Jong. There's talks of Pulisic going to United. There's talks of Maguire now coming to Chelsea, Ronaldo coming into Chelsea. I think there's definitely some kind of potential deal that can be done between the two clubs with the players that each one of them wants. But no, I'd take Ronaldo. I've always said in the summer that I'd take him. I've always been a big fan of his mentality, his work rate. I do think sometimes when his head's not with the game, or he's got some kind of disagreement with one of the players and the managers, he does kind of have that on and off switch where he can't just switch off. But if he's in the right system and he's happy and he's got the World Cup in probably his last ever World Cup in the winter that he will want to be at the top of his form to play at, and he might want Champions League football to bring him to that level, then I say go for it. And you look at his injury record, he's never injured, is he? He's never injured. He's probably straight in the ice baths after every single game. He looks after his body. I think he has like 3 different naps a day so he can like replenish his energy. He's the ultimate athlete for me. So I say go for it.
I agree. And I'm heavily backtracking because I think a few weeks ago, one of the things I said was I wouldn't want him at the club because of the reasons you've just explained. And also, he does come with that baggage, but I think his injury record is what would probably sell me, because Aubameyang does have that in him where he does have the odd injury. And I think if we're going to, whichever one we hopefully end up with, or hopefully one of them at least, you want to try and get the one that's less, there's the less frequency of them getting injured, and that's Ronaldo. I think he's someone that will definitely get the best out of some of those other players as well. And I think that's the difference, the leadership in him. Not to say that Aubameyang can't do that, but I think the leadership of Ronaldo will just bring everyone up. Yeah, it surely brings everyone up a level. Some of the players I've mentioned, a Mason Mount or, Sterling, Kai Havertz, some of these players would have to step up just a level of commitment and quality because of Ronaldo coming into it, and commercially as well. I feel like Todd Boehly is one of those where, Roman was very non-commercial. He wasn't really too fussed about the commercial side, but, you can see with Todd Boehly that there's certain things, even the changes that he's slightly making at the stadium at the moment at Stamford Bridge, just little certain things where you see, okay, that's for commercial reasons. Give me your thoughts on Todd Boehly so far at the club. How long has he been here now? About 5 months? Something like that, 4 or 5 months? 4
or 5 months. It was in May that it was made official, I think. So, yeah. But
no,
so far I love his energy, I love his commitment, I love his passion. He's at every single game. He's a fan before anything else, which is what we used to say about Roman as well.
Yep.
He's clearly backing Tuchel with the money that Tuchel needs for these players. I mean, if he's willing to pay 85 million for Fofana, 60 million for Gordon, then clearly there is the financial backing of the owner for the manager. It's still very early days. I do think maybe there could be a disagreement when Boehly has more of an influence than Tuchel in the players that come in, which could be what happens with Ronaldo. We just mentioned the commercial value of Ronaldo. Boehly being, I think, there's LA Dodgers co-owner. He knows all about commercial value, creating a franchise out of a club rather than kind of not thinking about that. So I think that can maybe create a bit of a feud between the two. But no, so far so good. I still think it's very, very early to give a proper opinion or judgment, but I'm liking what I'm seeing so far.
I'm mixed. I am, because I think I agree with you. I think, the fact that we've got these funds here, he's come out, one of the clear things he said at the start was, he wanted to, assure the fans that there's money available. I think it was almost close to 250 or 300 million, something like that was available to spend on new players. And that included getting rid of some of the players, i.e. Lukaku and some other players that have gone. So there's money there. He's come in and he's reassured fans. And I think that was crucial. My only sort of, I suppose, looking back now in hindsight, I would have kept Marina on, maybe just for this window. I think this window was so crucial to get right, and clearly we haven't done that because we've missed out on some key targets. And some of them, yes, Rafinha was never potentially going to come to us anyway when Barcelona come knocking for you. But you look at Jules Koundé, who we've been almost targeting Jules Koundé for 2 seasons, and for him to walk to Barcelona and sign with them, although he can't be registered, he has to be registered in 10 days, otherwise he's a free agent apparently. But different story for a different day. The fact that we've not really got that structure that seemed to work, and people, again, it split the fan base with Marina saying how, some people loved her, some people didn't like her. You look at some of the worst signings that she made and some of the good ones. So I just think having her there, or just a structure underneath Todd Boehly, would have been so crucial for that transitional change in ownership. And I think that's the only thing where I think, you're going in and you're having these discussions with Everton's, representatives, and we're talking about Anthony Gordon for 60 million. 60 million. I mean, that's crazy money. I think this Wesley Fofana deal potentially would have been done by now had we got maybe a Marina in. I just think it's dragging out. I mean, we've got Leicester next, which we'll talk about shortly, but we've these deals are dragging out. I think there's a week, maybe 9 days, 8 days till the window shuts, and
panic buy period now, isn't it?
we're at that. That's what I was getting. We're at that point where we're going to start throwing silly money around for players, just for the sake of it. And this is exactly why we still have Baba Rahman and Mitsi Batshuayi on the books, because we've done this for so many years, so we haven't learned anything. And that's my only sort of worry, that yes, we need to bring players in, but we also need to still offload some of these players. And you've got to raise that question, 8 days left of the transfer window. I know it's extended, or loans is slightly different. I think you can do that outside of the window still, but there's still loads of question marks around, and I've always said I can't judge Todd Boehly until next year, until this time next. I think you've got to give him 2 proper, not the winter windows, but the 2 summer windows, and judge him based on that. So far, so good, but there's definitely some red flags showing for me already. That I kind of think, well, it's great that we, again, as well, those relationships with the clubs, Marina had them. So he's having to do all this cold, walk into the room, not really know who is who and what is what, and build those relationships up. And that takes time as well. And that's one thing we don't have on our hands, is time at the moment, especially now, with a week to go, and we still don't have a Fofana deal done. We don't really know what our attacking options are going to be. Hakim Ziyech is flying to Amsterdam, but then there's nothing happening. They've got shirts in the window for him at the shops already. It just seems very messy and just chaotic. And sometimes, we suddenly hear we work best under, under pressure when it's all chaos, but this feels like a chaos where there's no real solutions. And that's worrying for me, I think, at the moment.
Alonso as well, still at Chelsea. We don't know if will he even be able to go to Barca. I think maybe a bargaining chip in the Aubameyang deal. Should we sign him? But yeah. Just last thing on Boehly, there was that video of him leading the negotiations at dinner in Barcelona, I think. And then him famously walking out and saying, "We're just here to have dinner." But he is committed. But I think I completely agree with you. Give him 2 summer transfer windows and then judge him next year.
You spoke about left backs, so let's quickly talk about Emerson, who's departed the club. I'm surprised he went to West Ham. I kind of followed the story for over the last couple of days, but I'm surprised we sold to West Ham, because I do feel like, as much as it's probably a running joke, in some ways, but they are quite a rival, because they've done really well in Europe last season. You'd expect them, albeit they've not had I think the bottom of the league, aren't they, at the moment, but you'd expect him to be there or thereabouts come the end of the season, and I think he's a brilliant addition for West Ham. But what's your thoughts on Emerson? Was he really given a chance at Chelsea? Did he do enough to warrant starting a bit more regular in the team?
Yeah, firstly, I completely agree with you. We're strengthening West Ham. We gave him Zuma, I think, last summer. Now it's Emerson, and they rarely do business with us, do they? They've been an absolute pain every time we tried to sign Declan Rice, so they quote us with ridiculous sums of money. So it's frustrating how we almost let them have it their way when it comes to them getting our players, but it doesn't really work out the other way around. But in terms of Emerson, I thought he's been there for 4.5 seasons. He's been a very loyal servant. He hasn't really complained when he hasn't played a lot of football. I think it's 70-something appearances in his 4.5 years. Spent the whole of last season out in Lyon. There's a chance for him to come back in January. I think he wanted to come back, but unfortunately, with the terms of his loan contract, he couldn't do that. I think one big performance I remember from him was in the Europa League final in Baku against Arsenal. He was very, very solid, then putting the cross for Giroud's opening goal. But no, I think with the kind of, when we switched back with Tuchel to the 3 at the back of the wing backs, it clearly favoured more Alonso and Chilwell than Emerson. So he was quickly kind of frozen out of the team and wasn't given much of an opportunity. But us signing Cucurella, I think, meant the ends for Emerson. He was 4th choice at the start of the summer, I think, because it looked like we were going all out for Cucurella. So I think it makes sense for him to move on. And like we always say, it's a World Cup year. He wants to be the first choice of Italy, left back. So he'll want game time. So we can only just wish him the best now. Yeah,
no, I agree. I'm just surprised, like you said, it was West Ham. I think, I do feel like we're strengthening West Ham. They're a really good team. I know that at the bottom of the league, so only 3 games in, but I think they're going to be there or thereabouts again. As long as they keep David Moyes, which I'm sure they will. I don't see why they wouldn't, but I think it makes sense for him. It makes sense for Emerson. He's still London based as well. So all the best to Emerson, but it's just a weird one for me, really weird. But let's quickly move on before we wrap up. Leicester City, next game, Saturday. It's a weird game because you just don't know which way it's going to go. Both teams are struggling in terms of form. Leicester's don't have a win at all. 2 losses and a draw, and we've got one win, 1 draw, 1 loss. So I'm not going to ask you to try and do team selection because it's just we don't know, do we? We don't know who's going to start. But just in terms of that game, I mean, it's definitely more important, I'd say, for Leicester, based on. I mean, it's important for us, of course, 100%. But you see where Leicester are. If we're talking from Brendan Rodgers, losing his job and stuff like that, it's definitely a key game for them to win. But we surely have to win that in terms of just trying to keep our, get our momentum going for the season.
Yeah, we'll be back in front of our home fans. The home support last weekend against Tottenham was superb. One of the best I've seen at Stamford Bridge in a very long time. And if we can keep that up against Leicester, then hopefully we can be the 12th man and help the team win. But no, you mentioned how important it is to Leicester. Obviously, the manager's job's on the line, but I think it's so important for us as well. I think, another defeat or another draw, you'll start to turn around, look at Tuchel. The media and the press will be on our back and say that Chelsea are going to really struggle this season, etc., etc. And that's the last thing you want in match week 4. So I think it's a must-win for us. I haven't been that impressed by Leicester, but I haven't been that impressed by Chelsea. So it could really go one of those games that could go anyway. So I'm glad you didn't ask me to make a lineup prediction or maybe even a match prediction, But yeah, I'm nervous. I think I've got a ticket to that as well on my own. I've sat on my own, given how hard the virtual waiting room has been to get tickets together. But I think I'm East Upper. I'm East Upper for this one.
Okay.
But, okay. Yeah, it might ruin my weekend again, but I really hope it's not the case.
You've got the dreaded walk of going down about 20 flights of stairs if we lose. Yeah, it's. But no, I agree with you. I think 100%. This is a testing period for Tuchel that I don't think he's really has Chelsea money, and it's going to be very interesting how he deals with that because we know Tuchel to be this. We've had blips. I think someone at the weekend said this feels like a West Brom. The Leeds game felt like the West Brom game. When we got battered, but it doesn't feel like that. It doesn't feel like a blip for me at the moment. It feels like we're in this position where we are transitioning from ownership and some players leaving, some players coming in. But I just feel like this is more than just a blip. I feel like we're at a point where you're right. If we lose this, we really are in the trenches. We're really in the deep waters, and we have to dig deep because. Yes, Liverpool are down there, but that they're going to get points at some point. Yes, Man United are down there. They're going to get points at some point. Even, like I just said, Wolves, West Ham, they're going to get points. So you don't need to be getting sucked into that sort of bottom half, 15th, 16th in the league. Massive fixture list coming up in October as well. We haven't even talked about the Champions League yet. That we've got to factor that into October as well. I just worry about the injuries for us, and it'd be interesting who is fit. I know Kovacic trained yesterday in the open training session, but it'd be interesting. Who is going to be fit? Is Kante going to be back? No, he won't because we know he's out for I think 5 or 6 weeks. But Koulibaly is going to be a massive loss. I know he played poorly against Leeds, but he done really well against Spurs. So. I'm worried. I'm going to be honest. I remember saying a couple of videos ago on the YouTube, one of the post matches, I think, that I wasn't worried, but I am now because we're getting into that territory where we say it's only 4 games in, it's only 5 games in, but before you know it, it's halfway through the season, and we need to start building momentum. So I'm slightly worried. But like you said, the next 7-8 days, transfer windows open. Ronaldo, potentially Aubameyang, one of the two, Wesley Fofana. So I'm hoping we can get some players in and get some momentum to build up to the table.
No, I fully agree. I think, like you mentioned, being worried, I think is normal for us Chelsea fans now because it's not just a blip. Last season, when we lost to Brentford 4-1, I think we bounced back in the following Premier League match week and we beat Southampton 6-0. I think when we lost to, was it West Brom the season before 5-2? We beat, I think it was Porto in the Champions League a few days later. So, but whereas now it almost feels like, yes, we lost 3-0 to Leeds, but we're not actually that confident that we can maybe get a win against Leicester. And sure, we can say pressure is on Tuchel, but some of these players need to play on Saturday, or I think it's Saturday.
Yeah.
They need to play. They need to play for the badge. They need to prove that. Listen, just because your name is Mason Mount, or just because your name is Kai Havertz or Edouard Mendy, your position in the team, your starting role is not guaranteed for the next match week. And if anything, dropping them could be a blessing in disguise, because it can make them come back hungrier and want to stay in the team. So, I mean, you mentioned starting formations, but all I'm going to say is the goalkeeper should be Kepa.
Yeah, I agree. I was going to touch on that, but I agree. I think now is the moment. If you're not playing well and you're not playing for the badge, then sit on the bench, because, like I said, there's opportunity for, Ethan Ampadu, Billy Gilmore, Conor Gallagher in the right position. There's opportunity for some of these players to
Amanda Broja.
Yeah, exactly. To get into this, even. I think he's still there. I don't know. Mitchie Batshuayi could get into the. You just don't know. There's so many options for some of these players to just make a name for themselves and get back into the team. And I don't want it to become one of those things where we guarantee to start Mason Mount just because he's Mason Mount and the fan base love him. And I think he's a brilliant, really good player. The same with Kai Havertz. These players are good players, but if you're not playing well, you're not playing, you're not in form, then you've got to be dropped. Mendy has to be dropped for the next game, just so he wakes up a little bit and thinks, right, I'm not just this goalkeeper that the fans think I'm the world's best, or I've got all these accolades and awards. It means nothing if you're making howlers in games which are costing us points. So it just doesn't make any sense to play Mendy for me. I agree.
It's the same mistakes we see with Mendy quite often, just him failing to clear his lines, being too complacent on the ball, his distribution's awful. I think it was West Ham when he tried to do the same thing and ended up giving away a penalty. We've seen it all too often. So I think we've got a midweek game on Tuesday, I think, against Southampton the following week. So there will be squad changes. There will be changes in the team. We might, I think Broja, if he's fit, might start one of those two games. Kovacic needs to come back in the team quickly, even if he is injured. I hate to say this, but I would rush him back, because we do need him in that two-man midfield. Yeah. But yeah, let's just really pray it's just a blip that we've seen so far. But it's hard to stay confident.
I'm going to stay confident. Our therapy session is nearly over, but you've won around. I'm going to stay confident. I'm going to try and hope we get 3 points.
Give us a prediction then. Give us a prediction.
Oh man, it's hard to. I backed him the last two games to score, and he's actually scored in. He definitely scored in the Leeds game, but he was off. So I'm going to back Sterling to score, because he looks the most lively in that sort of front three or front two, whatever we're trying to play, or whatever it is. But so I'm going to go for 3-1. I'm going to go for 3-1. I'm going to go for Sterling and two other players that shall not be named until probably Friday, because we just don't know who's going to start. But I think Sterling looks lively, and as long as he can stay fit. My worry with Sterling is he's playing slightly different to how Pep would have played him. So I worry that we're going to lose the qualities of why we signed him, if that makes sense. Yeah. I think we're going to lose those decent qualities that he had at City because of the way we're playing. The fact that he doesn't get, he hasn't got Kevin De Bruyne laying things on a plate for him, or he hasn't got Rodri or Gundogan or all these players that he's had at City. He hasn't got them at Chelsea. So I worry we're going to lose that quality in him. But I'm going to go 3-1. What about you? As soon as you put me on the spot, it's only right you
I think that there's a late goal in it, a late winner from Chelsea. I'm going to go 2-1. The home support will just tip it for us, I think.
I hope so. I'm sure there'll be a match preview beforehand anyway. But you enjoy the game.
Cheers.
Plenty of stairs to get up. I can't remember what game it was. I think it was the Spurs Carabao Cup last year, the first time I was in East Upper. And I didn't realise how many stairs there was. So enjoy. But as I said at the start of this, guys, if you're on the podcast version, then again, Linktree link is in the description. Make sure you hit that, follow all the social accounts, and subscribe to the YouTube channel. And vice versa, if you're watching on YouTube, go to Spotify or Apple Podcast, same link in the description, and make sure you do the same there as well. So Theo, we'll try and get another one in. I know you're going to be sunning it down in a couple of days, so we'll try and get another if not podcast, and we'll try and get another video in beforehand. But for those who have been watching and listening, thank you very much, and we'll be back very soon with another episode.